Wealth and Poverty. Chapter 1. The Great Divide. In the heart of Metropolia, where the streets glittered with the promise of prosperity, stood the towering edifice of wealth. Here, the elite thrived in a world of privilege and excess, their lives adorned with the finest jewels and silks. Mansions lined the boulevards, each one a monument to success, while sleek cars whispered through the streets, ferrying their occupants from one exclusive event to the next. Among the glittering elite was Alexander Sterling, scion of the Sterling dynasty, whose name was synonymous with wealth and power. From his penthouse perch atop the city, Alexander surveyed his domain with a sense of entitlement that came from generations of privilege. Yet beneath the facade of prosperity lurked a soul restless with discontent, yearning for something more than material riches. Meanwhile, in the shadowed alleys and forgotten corners of Metropolia lay the realm of poverty. Here, the air was heavy with the scent of desperation, and every face bore the marks of hardship. Families huddled together in cramped tenements, their dreams stifled by the weight of their circumstances, while the streets echoed with the cries of the forgotten and the forsaken. Among the downtrodden was Marcus Thompson, a man whose name was known to few and whose existence seemed destined for obscurity. Born into poverty, Marcus had known little but struggle and adversity his entire life. Yet amidst the squalor and despair, there burned a flicker of defiance in his heart, a refusal to surrender to the hand fate had dealt him. As the sun rose over Metropolia, casting its golden light upon the city below, the gaping chasm between wealth and poverty seemed wider than ever. But little did Alexander Sterling and Marcus Thompson know. Their fates were about to become inexorably intertwined in ways they could never have imagined. Chapter 2. Birth of Aspiration. In the corridors of power and the alleyways of destitution, aspirations brewed like a simmering storm, waiting to erupt. Alexander Sterling, despite his opulent surroundings, found himself plagued by a restlessness that gnawed at his soul. The weight of expectation, the burden of legacy, it all felt suffocating. Amidst the lavish parties and extravagant displays of wealth, he sought solace in moments of introspection, questioning the purpose behind the gilded facade that surrounded him. Meanwhile, Marcus Thompson's aspirations burned with a fierce intensity, fueled by the flames of adversity. Every hardship he faced only strengthened his resolve to carve out a better life for himself and his loved ones. In the dimly lit corners of poverty, he dreamt of a future where the shadows of despair would be banished by the light of opportunity. As fate would have it, their paths collided one fateful evening at a charity gala, where the rich and powerful gathered to flaunt their benevolence. Among the glittering throng, Alexander Sterling stood aloof, his mind far from the ostentatious display before him. And there, amidst the sea of faces, his gaze fell upon a figure unlike the rest, a man whose quiet dignity amidst the opulence struck a chord within him. Marcus Thompson, for his part, found himself out of place in the rarefied air of the elite, his threadbare suit a stark contrast to the designer ensembles that surrounded him. Yet he refused to be cowed by the palpable disdain in the eyes of the affluent, his gaze steady as he navigated the unfamiliar terrain with a sense of determination born of necessity. Their meeting was brief, a mere exchange of glances across a crowded room. But in that fleeting moment, something shifted. For Alexander Sterling, it was a glimpse into a world beyond his own, a world where privilege was not taken for granted, but earned through resilience and tenacity. And for Marcus Thompson, it was a reminder that even amidst the darkest of circumstances, hope flickered like a beacon in the night. As they parted ways that evening, their thoughts lingered on the encounter, each grappling with the unexpected resonance it had stirred within them. Little did they know, their meeting was but the first step on a journey that would defy the boundaries of wealth and poverty, forging bonds that transcended the divides of society. Chapter 3. Paths Diverged. In the days that followed their serendipitous encounter, Alexander Sterling and Marcus Thompson found themselves haunted by thoughts of one another, their lives now inexorably linked by the invisible threads of fate. For Alexander, the memory of Marcus lingered like a half-remembered dream, stirring within him a curiosity that bordered on obsession. He found himself drawn to the forgotten corners of Metropolia, seeking glimpses of the world. That Marcus inhabited a world so different from his own, yet strangely familiar in its humanity. Meanwhile, Marcus's thoughts were consumed by visions of the towering skyscrapers that loomed on the horizon, symbols of a world he had only glimpsed from afar. The allure of wealth and power called to him a siren's song, promising escape from the shackles of poverty that bound him. Yet even as he yearned for a taste of the opulent life that Alexander Sterling represented, a voice within him whispered of the dangers that lay ahead, warning him not to lose sight of the values that defined him. As their paths diverged, Alexander and Marcus found themselves navigating the complexities of their respective worlds with newfound clarity. For Alexander, the trappings of wealth no longer held the same allure they once had, their hollow promises ringing empty in the face of his burgeoning awareness. And for Marcus, the allure of success was tempered by a newfound appreciation for the simple joys that life had to offer, reminders of the richness of spirit that transcended material wealth. Yet even as they forged ahead on their separate journeys, the echo of their chance encounter lingered, a reminder of the bond that had been forged between them. And as they embarked on the next chapter of their lives, they could not shake the feeling that their destinies were intertwined in ways they had yet to comprehend. For in the vast tapestry of Metropolia, where the lines between rich and poor blurred with each passing day, anything was possible. Chapter 4: Struggles in Silence. As Alexander Sterling and Marcus Thompson traversed their divergent paths, they encountered obstacles that tested the limits of their resilience. For Alexander, accustomed to the privileges afforded by his family name, the journey into the heart of Metropolia's underbelly proved to be a humbling experience. With each step he took away from the comforts of his ivory tower, he was confronted with the harsh realities of poverty, families struggling to make ends meet, children scavenging for scraps in the streets, the silent despair that hung heavy in the air. Yet amidst the squalor and suffering, Alexander also found moments of unexpected beauty. A mother's smile as she tucked her child into bed, the laughter of friends sharing a meal despite their meager means, the resilience of the human spirit in the face of adversity. These glimpses of humanity touched something deep within him, stirring a sense of compassion that had long lay dormant beneath the veneer of privilege. Meanwhile, Marcus faced his own set of challenges as he navigated the treacherous waters of Metropolia's cutthroat business world. Armed with nothing but his wits and determination, he clawed his way up from the depths of poverty, determined to carve out a better future for himself and his loved ones. Yet with each step forward, he encountered obstacles that threatened to derail his progress: corruption, betrayal, the ever-present spectre of failure. But Marcus refused to be deterred by the trials that beset him, drawing strength from the resilience of those who had come before him. He found allies in unexpected places, mentors who saw potential in him where others saw only a street urchin. And as he fought tooth and nail for every inch of progress, he came to realize that the true measure of success lay not in wealth or power, but in the lives he touched along the way. In the silence of their struggles, Alexander and Marcus found a common thread that bound them together: a shared understanding of the trials and tribulations that define their existence. And as they pressed on, their resolve strengthened by the challenges they faced. They knew that no matter how daunting the road ahead, they would face it together. Chapter 5: Fortunes Unfold. As Alexander Sterling delved deeper into the heart of Metropolia's underprivileged communities, his perspective underwent a profound transformation. No longer content to merely observe from the sidelines, he rolled up his sleeves and immersed himself in the struggle for social justice. Drawing upon the resources at his disposal, he founded initiatives aimed at providing education, healthcare, and economic opportunities to those in need. His once solitary pursuit of self-discovery evolved into a passionate crusade for change, driven by a newfound sense of purpose. Meanwhile, Marcus Thompson's relentless pursuit of success began to bear fruit as he carved out a niche for himself in the competitive world of entrepreneurship. Armed with nothing but grit and determination, he built a thriving business empire from the ground up, his meteoric rise to prominence serving as a beacon of hope for those who dared to dream beyond their circumstances. Yet amidst the accolades and acclaim, he remained grounded in the values that had guided him from the very beginning, a commitment to integrity, perseverance, and humility. As their fortunes unfolded, Alexander and Marcus found themselves on parallel trajectories, their lives intersecting at unexpected intervals. What began as a chance encounter blossomed into a deep and abiding friendship, forged in the crucible of adversity and tempered by shared experiences. Together, they embarked on a journey to reshape the landscape of Metropolia, bridging the gap between the haves and the have-nots with a vision of unity and equality. But their newfound alliance did not come without its challenges. As they navigated the murky waters of politics and business, they encountered opposition at every turn, vested interests determined to maintain the status quo, skeptics who dismissed their efforts as naive idealism. Yet Alexander and Marcus refused to be deterred, drawing strength from the bond that united them and the knowledge that their cause was just. And so, as they stood on the cusp of a new era in Metropolia's history, Alexander Sterling and Marcus Thompson vowed to continue their crusade for a better tomorrow. Their voices joined in harmony as they championed the rights of the marginalized and the forgotten. For in the end, they knew that true wealth lay not in the size of one's bank account, but in the legacy of compassion and kindness left behind for future generations to inherit. Chapter 6: Bonds of Brotherhood. As Alexander Sterling and Marcus Thompson continued to navigate the tumultuous landscape of Metropolia, their friendship deepened with each passing day. Bound by a shared commitment to social change and a mutual respect forged in the fires of adversity, they stood shoulder to shoulder in the face of opposition, their bond unbreakable in its strength. Together, they embarked on ambitious projects aimed at uplifting the underprivileged and empowering communities long neglected by society. From building schools and healthcare facilities to creating job opportunities and advocating for policy reform, their collaborative efforts touched the lives of countless individuals, offering hope where there was once despair and opportunity where there was once only stagnation. But their partnership was not without its challenges. As they sought to dismantle the entrenched systems of inequality that had long plagued Metropolia, they encountered resistance from powerful interests determined to maintain the status quo. From corrupt politicians and unscrupulous businessmen to entrenched bureaucracies and apathetic elites, the forces arrayed against them seemed insurmountable at times. Yet Alexander and Marcus refused to be swayed by adversity, drawing strength from the unwavering support they found in each other. Together, they weathered the storms of doubt and uncertainty, their resolve only strengthening in the face of opposition. And as they faced each new challenge with courage and determination, they inspired others to join their cause, rallying a growing movement of like-minded individuals united in their quest for justice and equality. In the crucible of their shared struggle, Alexander and Marcus forged a bond that transcended the boundaries of wealth and poverty, race and class. They became more than friends, they became brothers, bound by a common purpose and the shared vision of a better world. And as they stood side by side, facing the dawn of a new day in Metropolia, they knew that together they could overcome any obstacle that stood in their way. Chapter 7: Echoes of Ambition. As the echoes of their ambition orated throughout the city of Metropolia, Alexander Sterling and Marcus Thompson found themselves propelled ever forward by the momentum of their shared vision. With each success they achieved and each obstacle they overcame, their determination only grew stronger, fueling a relentless pursuit of change that knew no bounds. For Alexander, the once solitary scion of wealth and privilege, the journey had become a deeply personal quest for redemption. No longer content to be a passive observer of the injustices that surrounded him, he threw himself wholeheartedly into the fight for equality, using his influence and resources to effect tangible change in the lives of those most in need. From funding educational scholarships to championing affordable housing initiatives, He sought to dismantle the barriers that perpetuated the cycle of poverty and despair. Meanwhile, Marcus's entrepreneurial spirit continued to drive him ever onward, his relentless pursuit of success tempered by a newfound sense of responsibility to the communities that had supported him along the way. With each new venture he embarked upon, he remained steadfast in his commitment to ethical business practices and sustainable growth, refusing to sacrifice integrity for profit. And as his empire expanded, so too did his influence, as he leveraged his position of power to advocate for policies that prioritized the well-being of all citizens, not just the wealthy few. But even as Alexander and Marcus basked in the glow of their achievements, they remained keenly aware of the challenges that lay ahead. The forces of inequality and injustice were deeply entrenched in the fabric of society, and dismantling them would require more than just passion and determination. It would require a sustained and concerted effort from all those who believed in the possibility of a better world. And so, as they stood on the precipice of a new era in Metropolia's history, Alexander Sterling and Marcus Thompson vowed to continue their fight for justice and equality, their voices ringing out as a clarion call for change. For though the road ahead would be long and arduous, they knew that as long as they stood together, they could overcome any obstacle that stood in their way. Chapter 8: Tides of Change. As Alexander Sterling and Marcus Thompson pressed forward in their quest for a more equitable society, the tides of change began to sweep across Metropolia with a force that could not be ignored. Their efforts had sparked a movement, a groundswell of grassroots activism and civic engagement that reverberated throughout the city, breathing new life into the struggle for social justice. From the bustling streets of downtown to the quiet neighborhoods on the outskirts, people from all walks of life came together in solidarity, united by a common purpose and a shared belief in the power of collective action. They marched in the streets, organized rallies and protests, and used their voices to demand accountability from those in positions of power. And with each passing day, their numbers swelled as more and more individuals joined the ranks of the movement, inspired by the courage and conviction of Alexander and Marcus. But even as the tide of change surged forward, it encountered resistance from those who sought to maintain the status quo at any cost. The entrenched forces of inequality and oppression fought back with all the tools at their disposal: propaganda, intimidation, even violence. Yet the spirit of the movement could not be quashed, as the people of Metropolia refused to be silenced in the face of injustice. For Alexander and Marcus, the battle was far from over. As they continued to lead the charge for change, they found themselves facing ever greater challenges and ever greater risks. Yet they remained undeterred, drawing strength from the unwavering support of their allies and the knowledge that they were on the right side of history. And as they stood at the forefront of the struggle, their hearts filled with hope and determination, they knew that no matter how fierce the opposition, the tides of change were inexorable. For in the end, the forces of justice and equality would prevail, as long as there were those brave enough to fight for what was right. Chapter 9: Shadows of Success. Despite the progress made by Alexander Sterling and Marcus Thompson, success did not come without its shadows. As their influence grew, so too did the scrutiny and the whispers of doubt that followed in their wake. For every victory won, there were those who questioned their motives and their methods, casting shadows of suspicion over their hard-fought achievements. In the corridors of power, whispers of conspiracy and corruption threatened to undermine the legitimacy of their cause. Accusations of ulterior motives and hidden agendas were lobbed like grenades, as those with vested interests sought to discredit their efforts and protect their own positions of privilege. And though Alexander and Marcus remained steadfast in their commitment to transparency and accountability, the shadows of doubt lingered, casting a pall over their hard-won victories. Meanwhile, in the streets of Metropolia, murmurs of discontent began to bubble to the surface, as divisions within the movement threatened to tear it apart from within. Differences in ideology and strategy sparked heated debates and bitter infighting, sowing seeds of discord among once united allies. And as the movement splintered into factions, the shadows of division threatened to extinguish the flames of hope that had burned so brightly. Yet even amidst the shadows of doubt and division, Alexander and Marcus refused to waver in their resolve, for they knew that the road to change was never easy, and that the path to progress was often fraught with obstacles and setbacks. And so, they pressed on, their determination undiminished by the challenges that lay ahead, their eyes fixed firmly on the horizon of a brighter future. For in the end, they knew that the shadows of success were but fleeting illusions, cast by those who feared the light of truth and justice. And as long as they remained true to their principles and their purpose, they knew that they would emerge from the darkness stronger and more determined than ever before. Chapter 10: Crossroads of Destiny. As the city of Metropolia stood at the crossroads of destiny, Alexander Sterling and Marcus Thompson found themselves facing a pivotal moment in their journey for social change. The shadows of doubt and division threatened to engulf them, casting doubt on the legitimacy of their cause and the efficacy of their methods. And yet, amidst the uncertainty, they remained resolute in their commitment to the principles that had guided them from the very beginning. For Alexander, the weight of expectation bore down upon him a heavy burden, as the legacy of his family name large over his every action. The whispers of doubt that surrounded him threatened to erode his confidence, as he grappled with the fear of failure and the spectre of disappointment. And yet, deep within his heart, he knew that he could not turn back, not when so much was at stake, not when the lives of countless individuals hung in the balance. Meanwhile, Marcus found himself torn between loyalty to his roots and the allure of the new world that beckoned him with promises of power and prestige. The shadows of his past loomed large over his present, as he struggled to reconcile the man he once was with the man he had become. And yet, amidst the turmoil, he found solace in the knowledge that his journey was far from over, that every setback was but a stepping stone on the path to greatness. As the city teetered on the brink of change, Alexander and Marcus knew that they stood at a crossroads, one that would determine the course of Metropolia's future for generations to come. And though the road ahead was fraught with uncertainty, they refused to falter in their resolve. For they knew that true greatness was not measured by the heights of one's achievements, but by the depths of one's convictions. And so, with their eyes fixed firmly on the horizon, Alexander Sterling and Marcus Thompson forged ahead into the unknown, their hearts filled with hope and determination. For in the end, they knew that destiny awaited them on the other side of the crossroads, ready to embrace them with open arms and lead them toward a future brighter than they could ever have imagined. Chapter 11: Lessons Learned. In the crucible of uncertainty and upheaval, Alexander Sterling and Marcus Thompson found themselves confronted with hard truths and harsh realities. As they navigated the treacherous waters of Metropolia's political landscape, they encountered obstacles that tested the limits of their resolve and forced them to confront the flaws in their approach. For Alexander, the lessons came hard and fast, as he grappled with the consequences of his actions and the unintended consequences of his privilege. He learned that good intentions were not enough to effect lasting change. That true progress required humility, empathy, and a willingness to listen to those most affected by the policies he sought to enact. And though the journey was fraught with setbacks and disappointments, he emerged from the crucible stronger and more determined than ever before. Meanwhile, Marcus confronted demons of his own as he wrestled with the weight of his newfound power and influence. He learned that success came with its own set of challenges, that the pursuit of wealth and status often came at a cost to one's integrity and sense of self. And yet, amidst the temptations and the trials, he remained true to the values that had guided him from the very beginning, emerging from the crucible with his integrity intact and his spirit unbroken. As they reflected on the lessons learned along the way, Alexander and Marcus found a renewed sense of purpose and clarity of vision. They realized that true greatness was not measured by the size of one's bank account or the extent of one's influence, but by the impact one had on the lives of others. And so, armed with a newfound humility and a deeper understanding of the world around them, they pressed forward into the unknown, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. For in the end, they knew that the journey was not about the destination, but about the lessons learned along the way. And as they ventured forth into the uncharted territory of the future, they did so with hearts full of hope and minds open to the infinite possibilities that lay before them. Chapter 12: Trials of Temptation. As Alexander Sterling and Marcus Thompson journeyed deeper into the heart of Metropolia, they found themselves beset by trials of temptation that tested the strength of their convictions and the resilience of their spirit. For in a city where power and privilege reigned supreme, the allure of wealth and influence was ever present, whispering seductively in their ears and tempting them to stray from the path of righteousness. For Alexander, the temptation came in the form of compromise, a subtle erosion of his principles in the face of pressure from those who sought to bend him to their will. With each concession he made, a little piece of his integrity slipped away, until he found himself standing at the precipice of moral bankruptcy, torn between the desire for power and the voice of his conscience. Meanwhile, Marcus faced temptations of a different kind, as the trappings of success threatened to ensnare him in a web of deceit and deception. The allure of luxury and excess beckoned to him a siren song, promising escape from the trials and tribulations of his past. And yet, deep within his heart, he knew that true happiness could not be bought with material wealth, that the path to fulfillment lay not in the pursuit of riches, but in the pursuit of meaning and purpose. As they grappled with the trials of temptation that beset them, Alexander and Marcus found solace in the strength of their bond and the knowledge that they were not alone in their struggle. Together, they confronted the demons that lurked in the shadows of their souls, determined to emerge from the crucible stronger and more resilient than ever before. And though the journey was fraught with peril and uncertainty, they pressed forward with unwavering determination, guided by the light of their shared vision and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. For in the end, they knew that true greatness lay not in the accumulation of wealth or power, but in the strength of character and the purity of heart. Chapter 13: Embers of Hope. In the darkest hour of their journey, when the shadows of doubt threatened to consume them, Alexander Sterling and Marcus Thompson discovered a flicker of hope amidst the despair. For even as they faced seemingly insurmountable challenges and grappled with the demons that lurked within, they found solace in the knowledge that the flame of hope burned eternal in the human heart. For Alexander, hope came in the form of a child's smile, a beacon of innocence in a world fraught with cynicism and despair. As he witnessed the joy and wonder reflected in the eyes of the next generation, he felt a renewed sense of purpose and determination, knowing that the future held infinite possibilities for those willing to fight for it. Meanwhile, Marcus found hope in the resilience of the human spirit, the indomitable will to persevere in the face of adversity and emerge stronger on the other side. As he witnessed the courage and fortitude of those who had faced unimaginable hardships and yet refused to surrender to despair, he felt a surge of inspiration that fueled his determination to press forward, no matter the odds. Together, Alexander and Marcus kindled the embers of hope that lay dormant within the hearts of the people of Metropolia, igniting a fire that spread like wildfire throughout the city. From the bustling streets to the quiet corners of the neighborhoods, the flames of optimism burned bright, driving out the shadows of doubt and despair that had threatened to engulf them. And as they stood amidst the flames of hope, Alexander Sterling and Marcus Thompson knew that their journey was far from over. For though the road ahead was fraught with uncertainty and danger, they faced it with hearts full of hope and minds open to the infinite possibilities that lay before them. For in the end, they knew that as long as there was hope, there was always the chance for a brighter tomorrow. Chapter 14: Reckoning with Reality. As the flames of hope burned bright in the city of Metropolia, Alexander Sterling and Marcus Thompson found themselves confronted with the harsh realities of their struggle. Despite their best efforts and the unwavering support of their allies, they discovered that change did not come easily in a world where entrenched interests held sway and progress was often met with resistance. For Alexander, the reckoning came in the form of disillusionment, a bitter realization that the forces arrayed against him were more formidable than he had ever imagined. Despite his best efforts to effect meaningful change, he found himself stymied at every turn by those who sought to maintain the status quo at any cost. And though the flames of hope still burned within him, they flickered in the face of overwhelming opposition. Meanwhile, Marcus faced his own reckoning. He grappled with the limitations of his power and influence. Despite his success in the business world, he discovered that wealth and status were poor substitutes for true fulfillment and purpose. And as he witnessed the suffering and injustice that pervaded every corner of the city, he felt a growing sense of frustration and despair, wondering if their efforts were all in vain. Yet even as they reckoned with the harsh realities of their struggle, Alexander and Marcus refused to surrender to despair, for they knew that the road to change was long and arduous, and that setbacks were inevitable in the fight for justice and equality. And so, they resolved to redouble their efforts and press forward with renewed determination, knowing that the flame of hope still burned within them, no matter how dimly. As they faced the challenges that lay ahead, Alexander Sterling and Marcus Thompson drew strength from the knowledge that they were not alone in their struggle. For in the hearts of the people of Metropolia, the flames of hope burned bright, lighting the way forward through the darkness of uncertainty and despair. And though the road ahead would be fraught with peril, they knew that as long as they stood together, they could overcome any obstacle that stood in their way. Chapter 15. The legacy lives on. In the final chapter of their journey, Alexander Sterling and Marcus Thompson stood at the precipice of a new era in the history of Metropolia. Despite the trials and tribulations they had faced along the way, they remained steadfast in their commitment to the principles that had guided them from the very beginning. And as they looked out over the city they had fought so hard to change, they knew that their legacy would endure long after they were gone. For Alexander, the legacy lay in the lives he had touched and the hearts he had inspired. Though the battles they had fought had taken their toll, he took solace in the knowledge that their efforts had not been in vain, that the seeds of change they had sown would continue to bear fruit for generations to come. And as he looked to the future with hope and optimism, he knew that the flame of hope would never be extinguished as long as there were those willing to fight for it. Meanwhile, Marcus found his legacy in the bonds of friendship and camaraderie forged along the way. Though the road had been long and fraught with obstacles, he took comfort in the knowledge that he had never walked it alone, that Alexander and their allies had been by his side every step of the way. And as he reflected on the journey they had shared, he knew that their legacy would live on in the hearts and minds of all those who had been touched by their story. As they stood together on the threshold of a new beginning, Alexander Sterling and Marcus Thompson felt a sense of peace wash over them, a feeling of fulfillment that came from knowing they had done everything in their power to make the world a better place. And though their journey had come to an end, they knew that their legacy would live on, a beacon of hope and inspiration for all those who dared to dream of a brighter tomorrow. For in the end, they knew that true greatness was not measured by the heights of one's achievements, but by the impact one had on the lives of others. And as they looked out over the city they had fought so hard to change, they knew that their legacy would endure as long as there were those willing to carry the torch of justice and equality forward into the future. Thanks for watching.